Growing a fashion brand takes more than great products. It takes an engine that keeps every order moving. DHL is that engine. More than a logistics company, they are the behind-the-scenes engine that keeps your whole customer experience running, from the first click right through to the final mile. With DHL, you get complete visibility into your orders, seamless setup with your online store and ability to scale, whether it's steady growth or a sudden viral moment. And the best part is you can grow without compromising the experience your customers expect from you. If you want to see how they can support your brand, head to the link in the show notes and get in touch with DHL. Hi, Grace.
Hello.
Welcome to the Fashion Brand Clinic podcast. I was just saying to you that you are by far my number one most requested guest. So we finally made it. Yay.
Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on. In a heat wave. Heavily pregnant. I'm very grateful.
Just in case it's not glaringly obvious on the video side. Really pregnant right now.
Well, fun fact, my boyfriend actually told me to message you in 2018, I'm going to say.
No way.
Yeah, because he followed somebody that you had collaborated with on YouTube during like the fitness era. And he was like, this girl's starting a fashion brand. You should reach out to her. I was like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
Stop it. Well,
and for 8 solid years, he has never let me forget.
Stop it.
He was like, I told you. So clearly he was an early adopter. And then since then, I've been trying for this day to get you on the podcast, and now we made it.
Well, I'm so glad we've made it work.
I know. And I do feel like you might have a slightly more interesting story today than you would have done 8 years ago. That's my story.
That's true. That's true. No, definitely 8 years ago. I mean, I probably would have come out with all sorts of shit. Not sure if any of it would have been helpful. So
I know that 99.9% of the people listening know who you are, but for the people who don't, do you want to give us like a little bit of an intro? Because I was going to do it, but I just feel like I'm not going to do it justice. So
thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll give a kind of whistle-stop tour. So I have been doing what I do for the past 10 years. I started, well, I think it's interesting. I think the assumption is always that I started on social media for a while and then started businesses. It was actually pretty concurrent. Like I started selling products within 6 months of starting on Instagram. So that was back in 2015. And just as I was in my last year of school, and everything was around kind of the fitness area. I was someone who originally, when I was online, I was just trying to have accountability. Like I was just posting about going to the gym. And then I got really into fitness. I started my first business in the fitness space, which was another consumer business, focused originally on digital products, and then went to be focused on things like supplements and the equipment that you were doing the digital products with, all of that. And then in my final year at university, I started TALA, which is an activewear brand. And that was 7 years ago. So essentially, since then, what I've done is concentrated on growing those businesses. I've started 2 more businesses, one in the consumer space, one in the tech space. And I have focused from that point on building up, I guess, a portfolio of brands that I really believe in, businesses that I really believe in, that I believe that I can help grow and help, you know, even get to exit with my investments and advisory work. I've had 2 multi-$100 million exits within the past year. So that's been really exciting, starting to see kind of the full life cycle of some of this kind of advisory work and investment stuff that I've done. So I guess just I've just spent 10 years getting used to what was a completely new space when I entered it. So I think I've seen that real evolution of creators, creator businesses, even like different ways to market. So like influencer marketing wasn't a thing when I started, social media, organic marketing, performance marketing, all of these things. I've seen the inception all the way through to where they are now, from both the side of a creator and from the side of a business owner and investor and advisor and all of that. So I guess that's the context I speak from. It's like this multi-pronged approach all into this area. But obviously I spend a huge amount of time, like the large majority of the time I spend every single day is running what is essentially a fashion business in TALA and making that the best business it can possibly be.
And it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Lots of cool stuff.
Thank you.
So you mentioned there activewear, and it clearly started as an activewear brand and that's what you knew and you're kind of known for that fitness space. Would you still describe it as an activewear company now, despite selling other things other than activewear as well?
I think I would, because and I'll talk to you through the evolution of the business, because I think there would have been times 3 years ago, for example, that you would have asked me and I would have said no. And I would have had a really tough time conceptualizing the business, which I think is a bad place to be in, because if you can't conceptualize your business, then
no one else can
no
either.
one else can. So essentially what the evolution over time has been that we started as an activewear business. I started realizing that we had this really unique approach to creating really thoughtfully designed product that fit really well, that was always from recycled and natural materials, so you could kind of guarantee that was the case. That wasn't like Lululemon prices, but was really, really good quality and was probably about £15 more expensive than the fast fashion versions, and really kind of outperformed in all of these different areas. And that unique approach, I was like, oh, well, I want this in so many different things. I want this in jeans. I want this in shapewear. I want these in all of these different things. So I chased after a lot of those. Some of the new categories we've done, we've kept. Some of them have felt too far from the business. And actually, I've had to, over the past few years, have some really clear conversations on actually what is our business, what isn't our business. And even if something would be an amazing idea, it doesn't mean we need to do it, which I think is a really key lesson for any founder. And sometimes you have to go through it to realize it. I think the reason I would still call us an activewear brand now is because that is our core.
Yeah.
And we only make products that relate to active in some way. So I think the key is understanding how our customer approaches active. Our customer doesn't just wear activewear to work out. They wear activewear for, well, essentially they wear activewear for a lot of different things. It's a big part of their life. They might have a cotton t-shirt that they absolutely love that they wear for active that's also their favorite t-shirt. That, like, the lines are blurred. So I think understanding our customer has enabled us to understand what activewear means to us without it needing to be in this box. That can be a hoodie that maybe you're not wearing in your sweatiest workout, but it still fits into that. Same with the outerwear, same with the swim. Like, we know when she's going on holiday, we know that she wants to have pieces that are really multifunctional, and that she's going to be able to like go on a hike in her cute kind of bikini with her linen shirt and her activewear shorts and all of that, and go have a beach at the end of it. When the lines are blurred for the customer, it enables them to be blurred for the company. I just think it's about really clearly understanding where those hard lines are. And so, yes, it is activewear. It's activewear for our customer. That doesn't mean every time she's wearing it, she's
in a gym sweating
or in a spin class or running a marathon.
Yeah.
It's understanding what activewear means and what the end use is for our customer.
And what would you say to Grace, who had lost a bit of that concept? What would you say to her back then?
I think I had a lot of conversations about it, and sometimes you're not ready to hear the advice that you need to hear. I think, different categories always did really well for us because we'd approach them like the thing we do really well at TALA is we are essentially a load of target customers all in one room debating over like the placement of one seam, or whether a bra is supportive enough, or whether something gives us too big a camel toe, or like whatever it might be. Like, we are the target customer. So that means if we're approaching something like shapewear or outerwear or whatever, we have this really thoughtful approach to it, and we spend so much time agonizing over all the details, which I think meant that every new category we did, not all of them were successful, but when we tended to do them, people were excited by it. And I think newness can be a drug.
Yeah.
Like, newness and constant new categories, all of that is very exciting. Mm-hmm. It's also not the right way to run a business.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be getting the bulk of your revenue through continuity products that generate high repeats.
High margin.
And yeah, generally high margin. I mean, we've never really excelled on that side because obviously we are recycled and natural, and we're very clear on like what we will and won't do
margin.
In terms of exactly like a business that can be run. But that was never our top priority. But yeah, I think that I definitely got caught up in the new excitement.
Yeah.
Which feels like it builds a good business because you get revenue from the newness. However, the amount of work you're doing every time to launch a new category is so significant. And if that tail is short, you've not got a business. Essentially, you've got a merch platform that launches things on very fast cycles. And that wasn't the business that we were growing. That also wasn't what our customer was telling us. Like, our customer comes into our business, they buy Dayflex flares. Like, I can tell you the 4 products
Yeah,
they buy.
that was the first thing I bought.
Well, exactly.
Actually, a bikini top and then a flares, yeah.
So Dayflex flares, the rate of sale and the repeat on them are insane just because they're a fucking great product. Like, they're so versatile. They make you look so good. They make you feel so good. Like,
yeah, they're like a wonder bra off your bum.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That is exactly how I would describe them. That, the double layer vest, the sculpt leggings, those are what people are buying. And that is what generates a successful business, because you are able to buy depth into those things. You are able to benefit from economies of scale. You are able to start buying above minimums, all of these different things, and you are able to generate a lasting business. That then can be scaled in all different ways because you know new channels work for it, all of that, and you can just grow based on that. What we were doing is having this massive breadth of different products and trying to try new things. Like, there were too many variables.
Yeah.
There are too many new different things that you're pouring lots of money into and having to educate the customer every time. The most successful businesses have a very clear hero SKU where most of their customers come in on, most of their customers repeat on, and they are famous for. And I just don't think we got that because we were being so heavily rewarded by the excitement of newness elsewhere. So I think that it was a journey we had to go through. I absolutely do not regret the large majority of the new categories we went into. Like, there are still some that I'm like, yeah, I just, that took up a huge amount of the team's time and energy and effort. And then we educated everyone on it and people still ask for it, but it's not really aligned to our customer base, like all of this stuff. But it's just one of the things that happens in business. Like, you learn as you go along and you can't fake those lessons. And people could tell you over and over, like, focus and get your hero SKUs and all of this. And you'll be like,
I'm different.
Yeah. And like, but every time we launch this, like a whole new category, we see this spike that we don't see elsewhere. And it's like, yeah, well, imagine if you actually had the equivalent of that spike over every single month because you built a business that's actually a replicable, scalable business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been, one of the many, many journeys that we've had. But I think that what I would I don't know, it's tough to say what I would say to her because
you want her to go through it.
She kind of had to, because people were saying it. Like, as in, investors were saying, for example, like, I definitely had some conversations where it was like, focus, I don't think we need that new category. And I'd be like, but it's going to create us this many hundreds of thousands on launch day. And it's like, yeah.
What about the day after?
Yeah. The day after, the tail, the repeats, the people who come into your business thinking that you're a business that creates jeans when actually you're not. And then your whole brand recognition's off, all of these different things. So important lessons.
Yes.
You've got to learn the lessons.
Yes. Well, on that note then, if somebody's listening, and I say somebody, there will be literally thousands of fashion girlies running a business, maybe a bit of a bedroom brand, maybe a side hustle, or like just taking the plunge to go full time and feeling a bit nervous. They've got the sales coming in, but they're not consistent sales. It's like a sale every other day or like a couple of times a week, and they just need that consistency to kind of take the leap and really commit to doing this brand full time. What advice would you give to those people?
So I think number one would be kind of what I've alluded to already. Get really clear on your hero.
Yeah.
Like, you, particularly in the early days, you should have one product that is like 50% of your sales. Maybe when you're getting bigger, it's 25%. I don't know if this is confidential data, so I don't know if I can share the actual brand. But I know $1 billion, like multi-billion dollar brand actually, 25% of their sales is one SKU. And they have hundreds of SKUs.
Yeah.
So 25% for that to be the one SKU, like, you have to find your hero.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's number one, because you can do all the marketing in the world, you can try all of the fancy things. If your hero product is not aligned with your target customer at the right price point, looking the right way, all of these different things, you're going to find it very hard. Like, you're spinning your wheels, essentially. So I'd get really, really clear on what that hero is. And it might be that you're close to it, but you're like, actually, no, do you know what? It needs sleeves, or it needs to be made out of cotton, or it needs to be sweat wicking, or there are many different things it could be. Talk to your customers, do a survey where one person wins a voucher at the end of it, email your top customers, like whatever, get that information. If your hero SKU is not clearly defined and as good as it can be, you're like, there's a hole in the bucket, essentially. So I'd say that's the first thing, because I think it's really easy to look on social media and be like, what are these 20 new forms of marketing I could do?
Yeah.
The best form of marketing is having a product that repeats, like that gets repeat customers. So I'd say that's the number one. And then once you've done that, or you can kind of do it simultaneously, look at what does work, because it might be that when you put a certain amount in Facebook ads, it works, or when you send something to an influencer who has over 80% women who are in the UK, then that really works. Or you do Pinterest ads, or you do like whatever it might be. Find something that works. You should be trying to find the ceiling on those channels actively when you know they work. So can you put a bit more money into them? Particularly like in the early days, you want to really make the lower funnel pieces work, because you want to be getting good cash flow into the business. Really, what the early days of a business should be is buying one product, or not many products, in MOQs, selling them as quickly as possible through maybe one channel, maybe a number of different channels, building that channel mix over time, reinvesting into that product, then maybe doing a variation on it. It should kind of just be that. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate things too early.
It's quite boring.
It is quite boring.
But that's why I say to people, like, you can have fun in other places, but don't mess around with the thing that's making your money.
Exactly. Like, you can do amazing organic socials. You can get really creative on campaigns, like whatever it might be. But the crux of it is really quite boring, as you say.
Just do more of what works well. And that goes for product as well. Some people are like, oh yeah, I sold this thing, it sold really well, and then we never did it again. You're like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Do it in 3 colours, gift it to people. Yeah.
Exactly that. And then I would make sure that through those different channels, you are ensuring that you are becoming famous for that hero SKU.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because when we talk about the top of the funnel, so things like brand marketing, things like general awareness, and the funnel I'm talking about, by the way, is a marketing funnel, in case people need a visual, just Google a marketing funnel. You'll see kind of top and bottom of funnel and all of that. But at the top of the funnel, you essentially need people to start to get an association of your brand and what it does. If you're selling 20 different products and people don't even have an awareness of your brand and they can't easily conceptualize it, they might know about your brand and they're never going to make a purchase because they don't even know where the fuck to start. Like, can I swear?
Yeah.
Needed emphasis. But realistically then, like, if you took that down to 3 products, 2 products, 1 product, ideal, like, or 1 main product and a few variations on it. So you can get it without sleeves, you can get it with sleeves, you can get it like whatever it might be. If they know your brand, they also know that product. And that is much more likely to mean that the bottom of the funnel works, and to mean that people actually have an awareness of what you genuinely do, which means that that whole funnel starts to work better. So I'd say that's what's really important. I think so many early founders are really spinning the wheels, and I understand why, because I've 100% been there. But I think it is so easy to look at, like, I've done posts before where it's like, there was this trend that it was like things that I did wrong as a baby CEO. And one of the things I focused on there was like influencer events right at the beginning, when it's like, until you have cash flow, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, you shouldn't be spending money on a dinner where no one can, like, you're doing a dinner and you've got an eyebrow serum. Like, no one can see that. No one's converting from that. No one's truly getting educated on the product. Yes, you can do that later on and you really educate the influencer in the hope that they might actually take that to a better setting that's more appropriate for your conversion. But actually at that level, like when you're starting out, when you are in that bedroom brand phase, getting to consistent cash flow and understanding your business. And I just mean, where does the money come from? How does it come from there? Like, what marketing are you doing to make it come from there? And how can you replicate and scale that? Until you've truly understood that, every further thing you do is overly complicated before you've actually just worked out, like, how the car works.
Yeah. Figure that out first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
You really don't need to. And going back to TALA then, a lot of brands are hesitant about putting their face to the brand for the reason of being struggling to exit it. And I'm like, girl, you're not even back registered yet. Like, don't worry about that just yet. You can pull yourself out of it at a later date. So with TALA, over time, you've kind of been stepping back, I feel like I've noticed, but you're still the face of the brand, but the brand doesn't rely on you in the same way that it maybe used to. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Look, I was very conscious at the beginning not to name it anything to do with me, not to be the model in all the campaigns. Like, I am one part of the funnel for that business from the beginning. I was one part of the funnel. I wasn't the whole funnel. So we were, as soon as we could, we were investing in gifting. We were investing in performance marketing. We were investing in influencer marketing, like all of these different things. It was never about how much of Grace can we put out there in order to sell things. I'm almost like a testing ground for what we can do for other people. So if we can get my quote unquote free budget to test messaging or chatty stories or a type of TikTok or whatever, and it works well, great. Why don't we replicate it across 15 influencers? That's what's helpful. And obviously, I'd say like having a influencer business or a celebrity business or whatever it might be, massive upsides, massive downsides. I have always been very conscious of that and really tried to build a business that is trying to benefit from the upsides whilst being very cognizant of the downsides. So we wouldn't have got investment in 2021 the first time we raised had we been reliant on me. There was no way, because otherwise it's too much of a risk for investors. You're not going to put multi-million investment into one person who might decide tomorrow they don't want to do it, who might
go off the rails,
who might get into an accident, who might whatever. You're just not going to do it. It's simply too much. So even before that point, there was a lot of data that we were gathering around the fact that there was only a certain crossover between my audience and TALA's audience. And yes, I could move the needle with a post. We could also still hit target without that. Like, it's not built around that. So we've very consciously done that from a very early stage. Lots of the conversations we had very early on were kind of, the assumption was it was almost a merch brand. And so we could come to it with all of this data and say, actually, it's not, this is how it works. Remove Grace's posting entirely, this is what the business looks like. So it's only ever an added benefit rather than something that would be kind of uninvestable or unscalable or unexitable. So that's been very conscious from very early on. And I think that actually, if anyone truly looked at the pages, they'd be able to see that. Like, yes, I'm on there. I'm on there probably as much as some of the influencers we use all the time. Like, there are other people who are probably on the page, like TALA's page, more than I am.
Yeah.
And all of it is intentional. All of it has been, like, I'm a very intentional person. I try and build things in the way that I, try and reverse engineer from where we want to get to. It's funny because people who follow me probably think I'm the face of the brand. I regularly stand in a TALA store for hours and do not have people people don't say hello or like whatever it might be. So, and we can see the attribution as well. We can see that, yes, like I, as an influencer, have very impressive conversion stats, but at the same time, that's not the business. Like, TALA would not be able to do the revenue it does every year through just me.
Yeah.
Like, that would be an insane conversion metric. Like, that would be, if we could do that, I should be sold for a hell of a lot of money to lots of different people. Like, as in, that's not all on me. TALA is a business with, over 80 people working in there. That it wouldn't need to be that, nor would we have worked towards it being that with all of these different channels. Were it reliant on me, it would be me and a product team and maybe a socials team to post on their page.
Very lean business.
And it's, it works that way. And other people do that way. And I do not, it doesn't, I don't look at it any differently. It's just, I knew, like, when I started TALA, one of the aims was that I didn't want to be an influencer. So if I were to trap myself into even more so needing to do that, I'm about to go on maternity leave. Like, I'm gonna, imagine how shit scared we'd be at TALA if it was like, oh God, she's gonna go on maternity leave, like all of that. Like, my job within the business is probably more of a concern for that time than anything outside of it in terms of like me being a channel.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to take yourself out of it too quickly and then thought, actually, no? Because I think I've seen that with a few brands that I've worked with. They think, oh, we're at a point where you just don't need me at all anymore. Yeah. And then it's like, not quite. Can you just come back for a little bit?
So yes and no. So I think that on one side, there's definitely been like individual areas where I've thought, do you know what? At this stage of the business, I shouldn't be involved in this anymore. Like, it's not helpful to them, all of that. And that's ended up not being right. So for example, I used to try on every single sample that went through the business for fit, even though I'm not a fit size, but I would just like I'd get it in my size, I'd try it on, I'd do like, because I'm the founder, I'd do like a very intensive kind of opinion process. Obviously we do like separate fit model sessions and separate like use testing, all of this, but I would always do that. And then I kind of thought, oh, this is unhelpful and it's a lot of time for me. And I was doing like bags of samples every week. And I was like, just because like so many samples go through the business that don't even make it, like all of that. I was just like, oh, this isn't helpful. And then I stopped doing that. And then things weren't the same.
Yeah.
And as much as you're going to try and mitigate for a lot of those things, and as a business grows, you want to make sure you are covered in different areas. There are also some things that you as the founder are going to have opinions on that other people might not even notice. And that's not even because they're not doing their job properly. It's because you're the founder.
Yeah, you're the one with the vision,
exactly,
looking forward.
You're the one who wanted this in the first place. You're the one this is their whole life is dedicated to. Like, there are certain things, like the things that make your business truly your business, you should probably stay in.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like, oh, it's, we're too big for that now, or like whatever it might be. On the other side, I think I tried for years to delegate more and to...
Because that's what everyone tells you.
Yeah.
When you're growing, make sure you hand everything over.
Which is really important. But I tried for years to delegate more, to make sure that people in the team had more autonomy, because it wasn't just like, Grace wants this. It was like, no, this is the best thing for the business, and here's the data that shows that, and that's led by the person who leads that team, or whatever it might be. And for years, I really tried to step away, but at the same time, I was so terrified of, again, one of the big downfalls of like having an, I guess, influencer brand is that everything that goes wrong is entirely down to you, which is, I take responsibility, I'm fine, I will always... Like, there is never a time where I've ever been like, yeah, that was the social media manager. Or like this, like, it's my business, it's my responsibility. Like, I'm never going to throw anyone else under the bus. So I never stepped away from all of these different things because I was so terrified. One of the best pieces of advice I was given at that time was step away from everything, as in all of your approvals, see what breaks and go back into those.
Yeah.
And I just never thought I had the luxury of doing that, because I was like, yeah, but online, like, we're going to get cancelled and something's going to go wrong and it's going to be a socials post or an influencer thing or a product thing or whatever. And I have to be over absolutely everything. And it just was no longer feasible for the size of business.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to that advice for ages until I got to a point where I was so burnt out that I physically couldn't anymore. And I was just working the most insane hours all the time. And I couldn't see a single friend ever. And like, one of my friends came over from Australia and she was like, I'll meet you at 6 a.m. for a walk in the park. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I physically can't. I was working such obscene hours all the time. And I never, like, I was drinking Huel for like 3 meals a day. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, this is not where it needs to be. So I tried that. I tried fully stepping away. And that was actually the only way that it got me as a founder to change the way I delegate and to change how involved I was in every stage of the business in a negative way. Because I think one thing that's also really bad is like you're hiring all of these people for their skill sets and then you're basically over their shoulder all the time. Like I was probably micromanaging so many people. It was probably infuriating for them. At the same time, I felt like I had to micromanage. Otherwise, something was going to go wrong and it was going to be all my fault and I wasn't even going to know it had happened. And so I was kind of like had that anxiety. But at the same time, someone comes to work for you to be able to do their work and do what they're good at. And I was just removing their autonomy.
Yeah.
And so I think that was really important as well.
Yeah. I read a really good book actually about the guy that founded Netflix. I don't know if you've
I
seen
haven't read it, no.
And he said something about leadership that was you tell people what to do, but you don't tell them how to do it.
Yes.
And it's like, I need this done. But the way that's where their creativity and like joy for their job comes from.
100%.
If you do both, just do it yourself.
Well, exactly. And so I think that that's not what I was doing. I was saying what needed to be done and telling them how to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful. And particularly because it doesn't you're not built a business then. And so I really had to get out of that at the same time as like trying to maintain the standard and never make a single public mistake.
It's like giving me anxiety just talking about it.
But at the same time, I just got to a point where I was like, okay, well, either we stay this size forever and I stay on the verge of burnout, like really hating life, or I realize that this is not the way that this business can run. So we're going to have to change it.
I don't want to be the bottleneck anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you mentioned about getting cancelled or like just going to sleep hoping that you don't get cancelled. How much does that play a part of running a business? Because have you faced criticism? If so, like how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, I mean, every single business owner who is building in public, like that is the big downfall. So I'd say that's one of the main downfalls of building in public is like building a business full stop is about making mistakes, doing some things right, working out what was right, putting more money into that, replicating that, going again. You have to be able to make mistakes to run a business. Like I've spoken about this publicly a lot because female founders are not allowed to make mistakes ever. They're not allowed to price things wrong. They're not allowed to do a marketing campaign that didn't like tick that whatever box. They're not allowed to do like they cannot do things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not allowed. And cancellation and general opinions held for women are much more often to the woman than to the business. As in, it's just true. The way the cookie crumbles.
Sadly, by women.
Yeah, but I think that's a whole other conversation around like how we've been taught. Like, again, that's the patriarchy. Like, again, that is fighting for a certain amount of spots and being told that there's only a certain amount of us that need to be there and having this internalized view that women need to be this, that, and the other. So, like, it's complex. Like, I don't think that it is the fault of individual women. I think sometimes we need to examine our behavior when it comes to what external environments we've been put in and how that makes us react. Like I used to say all the time, like, oh, I've heard that person's really hard to work with about a woman. Have I ever said that about a man who's successful in their field? No.
That's so true. Yeah.
So I think it's all learning, and I won't have always got it right. Neither will anyone else. But I think that, I think what I've accepted is that, and this is why I don't think all influencers should have businesses as well, is if you're building a business in public, the only way to build a business is to make mistakes. It is in your interest to make as few as possible. However, that rate of experimentation has to be high, otherwise you're going to get nowhere. So I think that you can't have your cake and eat it. If you're going to build in public, you've got to be aware of the fact that people are going to hold you to account. And I think we can have a lot of conversations around the way women are held to account versus men, particularly in female versus male founders. But I think the crux of the thing is if I'm going to decide I want to be a entrepreneur and I want to build in public and I want to have all the benefits of this, I've got to fucking well deal with the fact that all of my mistakes are going to be aired for the world to see. I'm going to be really proud of something and everyone's going to be like, this is shit. We fucking hate this. How dare you? Why would you think this is a good idea? I think your work's terrible. And that's the reality. That's what it is. And I can't have the good sides without having the bad sides. So
that's fair.
Just got to get used to it.
Yeah. Well, talking of the good side, one thing that I've wanted to talk to you about for so long is your £1 million coat launch. I was watching that thinking, how the fuck has she done that? My mind was blown. So, talk me through it.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
So I think the important thing to say about that launch was that was the third year in a row doing that product.
Yeah.
So again, when we're talking about hero SKUs, we're talking about like what drives your business, what do you become famous for? That was the third year of doing that product. That's not a new, overly hyped product. That was the third year. So realistically, the focus had been becoming famous for a product that we think is really fucking great. And for the 2 years prior, had got unbelievable reviews and had sold out because of those reviews in a like slower way. And we wanted to make sure that, again, because we knew we would have got a lot of shit had we relaunched and not had a lot of stock. And then there's the whole like, you're doing this to restrict demand and like, you want to be sold out and all of this, despite the fact that it's fully in our interest to be able to capitalize on, on the demand. We only launch them once a year. It's a like, as in our production for that takes like 8 months. So we make a huge investment up front. So realistically, what we did that year is we looked at the previous year and we said, yeah, we could times it by the multiple that our revenue is growing this year.
Yeah.
Or we could double down and say, we know this is a really good product. We know it gets unbelievable reviews. Therefore, what if we bought 5 times the amount? And it felt like a massive risk.
Yeah,
but again, it was all of our ethos was pointing to it. It was one really amazing quality product that people were like, I wear this coat in minus 30-degree weather. I bring this on every single city break because you can take the arms off. You can wear it as a gilet. You can wear it as a puffer, like all of this. We did not buy that for it to sell out in one day. We bought that to be able to build a business on it. However, we marketed too close to the sun. and like there was so much hype from it. Again, it wasn't like I think people always hear something like that and they're like, oh, it's just like fashion hype. It's like about this one thing.
Yeah.
Like this is a coat that, but like I see people, bearing in mind this launch was like 3 years ago. We still do this coat, but we've like as in we've had some, like I can tell the difference because there was a different like tab, all of this. I still see people in that. In the winter, I will probably see, depending on the area I'm in London, I will often see a few a day, like genuinely. So this was like a product that had built up popularity due to the actual efficacy and success of the product itself. So it felt like the right thing to invest into and to really test our channels and to find the ceiling. And we just decided to essentially take the leap, and the product had kind of done the marketing for us.
Because it's a risk, but then, like you say, all the data's saying it's not really a risk.
But that's the thing, is that like, really, like, yes, it's a risk, but it's not like we invested a different amount in inventory that season. We just bought shallower in other areas and invested in something we knew was a success and was going to be a success and was a really great product through and through. Like for us, it all comes back to product. We're not going to overinvest in something if we don't believe that like it's genuinely a game-changing product that you cannot get anywhere else, anywhere near the price point, like with recycled materials, doing the effort. Like we try and tick all the boxes, which is really hard for a business to do, like on fit, on price, on materials, on performance, on everything. Like we're really hot on that. There's a reason why TALA's so, like, we did this massive survey and there's like a word cloud at the end, and like the massive word was like quality. Yeah. And it was just like, this is, you know, like what we're known for. And so we're really like, it felt like the right thing to do, and it felt like a type of thing that we needed to just like try and see whether it worked. And
the risk paid off.
The risk paid off, but as I said, it wasn't meant to be a day.
No.
Like it was meant to be our business for the winter.
Yeah.
Like that was meant to be the basis of our business. That was meant to be what we were putting influencer spend behind, what we were putting performance spend behind, what we were really kind of trying to build a business off of.
Yeah. And it was such like a huge marketing moment online. Like everyone was talking about it. Did you see a ripple effect across like other areas of the business because you had that like so much attention?
Yeah. So we like, as in, uplift on launch days is definitely a thing. Also because people naturally buy things together. So they might have had some Dayflex flares in their basket, for example.
Yeah.
And they come on to buy the Storm Puffer and then they buy them together. But yeah, I think that's why it's so important that you get your marketing moments right.
Yeah.
Because that, like, it needs to be, like, imagine if that was for a ball gown that we'd made that was really amazing. Like, yeah, that's cash, but like, now everyone knows this is a ball gown brand. So like, that's unhelpful. Like, every good moment you have is consolidating people's brand perception in your head, and bad. So it's like, yes, that will create uplift. How much uplift it creates is about how true to your brand that thing is. Because if someone likes something, they might be like, oh, I love the way they did that. Like, I wonder if I could, get that across a blazer or a shirt or a whatever.
Yeah. So congrats on launching your stores in London.
Thank you.
How did it all come about? What was the thought process behind that?
So I've wanted to do stores for years.
Yeah.
And a big reason for wanting to do stores is, again, just like truly understanding our business. Online, a black legging is a black legging is a black legging. Like, you could see our black legging versus a fast fashion black legging. They're going to look the exact same online.
Yeah.
Really
Black's hard to sell online.
Or just like any, like, activewear. Like, it's next to skin. It's, there's only so much variation you can do. The difference is in the quality, in how flattering it is, in the fit, in the way you don't have to pull it up, in the way that, like, touch, like, all of those different things. So as much as we're like digital marketing proficient, like, that's one of the things we do really well. If our superpower is our product and our product is our best marketing, how do we make that actually true?
Yeah.
Like, from a distance, that can only be true to a certain extent, because people they might be buying because they saw it on their friend, but that's probably the closest they're getting to the product before they actually buy it. So I wanted that for years because it felt so appropriate to our business. Like, I just felt like our customer, when we convert a customer, we have them for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like, our lifetime value is amazing. Our loyalty from customers is amazing. Again, because we spend so much time on particularly that quality and flattering fit point. So how do we get more people to understand that about the business when digital is not native to that? And so stores really made sense for us. I wanted it to make sense for the business as well. Like, as in, obviously it made sense from a brand point of view, but like, stores they're not a massive profit vehicle. You can make them pretty profitable. Like, there's a reason we didn't do like a massive flagship store somewhere that was just like an ego thing and like a marketing thing, rather than like an actual kind of,
on a shopping
we wanted
street.
each of our stores to be profitable, like individually profitable. Yeah, it was a dream for a long time. It was about making it work for the business itself. It was about being the right place, the right time. It was about having the right stock cover, about having the right inventory programs, about having the right team to be able to actually merchandise it. Like, you're growing an entirely different business. You go from online to in-person overnight.
Yeah.
That is a whole different thing. Like, if you think of Thursdays at 12 p.m, where our launch days are every few weeks, that also needs to be live in the store. So that physical product needs to be out. You need to have the fact that it's it's in stock, in store. Is it also in stock online? What if someone checks out at the same time? Like, do you have the ability to do that? Like, all of these different things. It's like, it's a very different type of business. So I didn't want to rush into it. And yeah, just tried to find like the perfect place that was a balance of like being able to have our flagship store and it be something that was really exciting and like British, like, kind of really owning that, whilst also being not too expensive, like all of these different things.
Yeah.
So the Carnaby Street store, which was our first store and was open about a year ago now, was a really exciting moment. And then we opened our Westfield store
like
a few
quite
months
soon after. Yeah.
Well, we were like signing that one while we were literally
Wow.
opening the first one.
Yeah.
But again, it's just on taking calculated risks. Like all of this, you model out a, stretch target. So what if you did really well, a kind of base case? You do a, what if it's not doing very well? You work out if that is going to sink the business, then you're not going to do it. If you have two of them where actually the shit case for both of them is still fine for the business, what if you just try it?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what we've been doing over the past year. Got lots of big plans.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but like if we'll leave it on a cliffhanger for like part 2 of like what's coming next. But one thing I did want to ask you was, who is your inspiration? Who are you looking to? Because everyone that's listening to this is looking to you, but who are you looking to?
Oh, thank you. That's very
AKA,
kind.
who should my next guest be? Because now I've ticked my bucket list guest.
I think lots of different, like one thing that I think is really important is when you're looking for mentorship, not to look too far ahead. I think
I agree.
It's really important not to be like, oh, I want Bill Gates to be my investing mentor.
Yeah.
It's and even less extreme versions of that, like the CEO of your company when you are entry level. That's not helpful. Great, look up to them, see what they do, see if their jobs like would be right for you in the future, all of these different things. But they're not actually helpful to you. The best people that will be most helpful to you and most inspirational to you and best mentors to you are the people who are like 1 or 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Like they know your problems. They've recently been through your problems. They understand what it's like at that size, all of this. I think a lot of people look online and they look at the kind of like Emma Greeds of the world and like all of this and they're like, and don't get me wrong, incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you're starting your business, you can look at that as an aspirational thing, but find someone who's a year into their business, like get inspired by them. So that's what I've always tried to do. I get inspiration from like all different people. I've really spent a lot of time trying to build up my network to be, I guess, filled with different people who have built similar size companies a few steps ahead and all of that. So I feel very lucky to be able to go to lots of different people for advice all the time. But yeah, like, of course, I look at all of these people who are doing so incredibly well and truly understand their businesses, like Emma Greed, like the team at Refi with Jess and Jenna, like there's so many
female
people.
founded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lots of different types of businesses. And I would always recommend getting your inspiration from a breadth of people.
Yeah.
So that you can dive into what makes sense for you at any given time.
And that you don't end up accidentally copying them as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that if you just get so fixated on one person, then you would end up like following their path too much and it might not be right.
Because you also don't know what their strengths are versus your strengths.
Yeah.
Like you want to take advice, and even if it's like at a distance advice from people who share some of the same struggles, some of the, like, I can see online if someone's me, like as in if we have the same things, like in my brain, downsides, like all of this, like I can see. And even if they're not in my field, then I'm like, I'm gonna listen to you and learn from you because we have similar brains and I can see that.
Yeah.
Whereas like there are some people who are like the most unbelievable creatives and they're like really mysterious and kind of amazing at doing these big campaigns and all of that. And I'm like, I would love to be you.
Me too.
Can take inspiration from you. I am not you, so it's probably not where I'm going to take the most useful inspiration.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. I've learned so much. I feel like I'm so glad this is recording because I need to go back and listen to it. But yeah, I've really loved having you as a guest. So thank you again.
No, thank you so much for having me.